Good evening, I'm Diana Sky and you're watching World News Tonight live from Warsaw. NATO countries have decided to pledge $35 billion in support for Ukraine as allied defense ministers met in Brussels. This as Kyiv renewed its call for more air defense systems to help repel daily Russian attacks. Now we'll have more on that in a moment, but first, the latest headlines.
Poland is not and will not be a vassal in these relations as long as I am the Prime Minister of the Polish government.
The Polish Prime Minister has rejected Trump's Board of Peace.
They train under constant sirens and shelling without heat and are treated unfairly and disqualified without reason.
Ukrainian Olympic athlete is disqualified over war tribute.
I've been advised to forget calories and then eat donuts today.
And Poland celebrates Fat Thursday. NATO allies have pledged $35 billion in new support for Ukraine, a move that highlights how the alliance is adapting to the war in real time. Let's now bring in our defense correspondent, Zuzanna Jurek, who is in Brussels. So, Zuzanna, good evening. What exactly will the $35 billion fund?
Good evening, Diana. So I think, first of all, it's important to highlight that this is a significant pledge and it comes on top of already other significant pledges that we've seen today. Earlier in the morning, it was announced that the UK, Germany, the Netherlands and Sweden, will contribute additional $500 million to the Pearl program, that is the purchasing of US-made weapon systems via NATO, European NATO countries. Now, when it comes to the $35 billion pledge that we've just heard coming out from the Ukrainian Defense Contact Group, we know that the Ukrainian Defense Minister Mikhail Fedorov has highlighted that the key priority for Kyiv will rest in further development of drone capabilities, that is drone interceptors, as well as long-range strike drones. Now, additionally to that, the European NATO allies have pledged further support for air defenses. And on that note, the German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has highlighted some of the initiatives that Germany itself is willing to take.
One thing we will contribute to is what is referred to as a city dome project. It is concerned with the improvement of air defense above Ukraine's metropolitan areas that are under threat. Air defense is one of the priorities of our support anyway. Germany is going to deliver 5 additional interceptor missiles called PAC-3 to Ukraine if other supporting countries donate a total of 30 PAC-3.
Now, additionally to supporting Ukraine through additional capabilities, European NATO allies have also highlighted the need to implement some of the key lessons learned from Ukraine when it comes to developing their own capabilities. This was one of the key takeaways from the ministerial meeting of the NATO allies, which took place earlier today. And on that note, a number of multilateral cooperative agreements have been made, including by Poland, as well as the United Kingdom, Sweden, France, and Germany on the development of their own long precision strike weapons, that is the ELSA project, which we will see coming to fruition in the upcoming years. Although the letter of intent which has been signed today doesn't provide many details on what this is going to look like, we know that this will draw on the capabilities that the Europeans have already managed to develop, namely when it comes to Poland on the example of the SAN system, that is the anti-drone or a specific anti-drone system that has been unveiled, and it will serve on NATO's, on Europe's eastern flank, Poland's eastern flank in the years to come. And we know that this project, the SAN project, is led by a consortium of Polish and Norwegian companies, and the same can be expected of this ELSA project, according to the Defense Minister of Poland.
The Polish defense industry must be involved. Independent delivery, just like the SAFE program, an independent chain of delivery and production capabilities of, for example, 155mm ammunition. So basic things, but also more advanced equipment. This should be a part of Poland's defense industry, both in the public and private sectors, and we're working on it. We were able to achieve at least a part of this. We're building a factory to produce shorter, 80-kilometer range missiles for Chunmoo launchers in Poland. It's already a great success. The WB Group has signed a deal with its Korean counterpart. Poland plans to buy ammunition from this factory to supply its missile launchers.
So I think it's fair to say that with what has been highlighted in the ministerial meeting, which comes ahead of the Ankara summit of the NATO alliance in July, it is fair to say that there are two key priorities for the alliance as of right now. A, strengthening their own capabilities, and B, strengthening European-led initiatives for Ukraine. Diana?
Thank you so much, Zuzanna Jurek from Brussels, for breaking it all down for us. Ukraine's energy infrastructure is under relentless attack, and Europe is stepping in to fill the gap left by U.S. aid cuts. John Todd reports on how the upcoming Munich Security Forum could shape the continent's defense strategy.
Under pressure in Odessa, firefighters battle flames early Thursday after an attack on a power facility. It's part of the Kremlin's campaign to destroy the country's energy infrastructure. The need for continued support for air defences will be one of the key messages Ukraine's team takes to the Munich Security Forum, which starts Friday. Last year, that support came almost entirely from Europe after U.S. President Donald Trump halted support, according to a report by the Kiel Institute for the World Economy.
So since the inauguration of Trump administration, there haven't been any new aid packages from the U.S. On the other hand, European donors have significantly increased their support.
Figures show US aid fell by 99% last year as Europe upped its own military support by 67% compared to the 2022-24 average. It's a similar story for financial and humanitarian aid, which Europe boosted by 59%. Arms and munitions were largely supplied via the prioritised Ukraine requirement list mechanism, known as PEARL, through which US weapons were bought, then donated to Ukraine.
With this initiative, at least 3.7 billion euros have been allocated by 24 donor countries as of December 2025. Poland, for example, has allocated around 90 million euros through this program up to the same period.
Nico Langer, former chief of staff at Germany's Ministry of Defence and senior fellow at the Munich Security Conference, told TVP World's On the Record that just as Europe has filled the gap for Ukraine, it must also significantly step up its own defences.
We not only have to build the capabilities, we also have to show that we are willing to do what is necessary. And this might be now more important than ever, because clearly the Americans are not willing to do what is necessary for European security anymore.
As European delegates gather in Munich, Russia's threat to Europe and the continent's ability to defend itself will be top of mind. John Todd for TVP World.
Poland is not and will not be a vassal, says Prime Minister Donald Tusk, drawing a firm line on U.S. President Donald Trump's Board of Peace. Warsaw refuses to join. Paweł Czaskowski reports on the politics behind the decision and what it means for U.S. Poland relations.
After weeks of tiptoeing around the issue of Polish-US relations, Washington finally gets a firm statement coming back from Warsaw.
Poland is not and will not be a vassal in these relations as long as I am the Prime Minister of the Polish government.
These words from Prime Minister Tusk come on the heels of Wednesday's announcement that Poland has refused to join Donald Trump's latest initiative.
Poland will not join the work of the Board of Peace, but we will analyse it.
The Board of Peace is supposed to be the most prestigious board of leaders ever assembled, according to its founding father, Donald Trump. And its possibilities are said to be limitless.
Once this board is completely formed, we can do pretty much whatever we want to do.
Despite these great promises, a no to the invitation was expected to be heard from Warsaw, as there are numerous question marks on the initiative.
Legally, it's a private initiative of the President of the United States, which tries to build a parallel system to the United Nations.
These concerns didn't stop Hungary and Bulgaria from joining, the only two EU countries to do so. At first, Poland hedged its bets. Having received the invitation, President Nawrocki stalled.
This type of presidential signature, of course, requires prior approval from the Polish parliament and an initiative from the government, so I simply expressed my great interest.
But Nawrocki's great interest never materialized into an open endorsement of the initiative. At the same time, a governmental no allows him to maintain good relations with US President Trump, something that even the government admits could remain its prerogative.
This division of roles is well known. President Nawrocki believes that he has a better relationship with President Trump. And that is how we divided things up. The president takes the lead here. No skin off my back.
Paweł Trzaskowski for TVP World.
European leaders gathered in the Belgian countryside to begin charting a new economic direction for the continent. Now facing mounting pressure from China and uncertainty surrounding a volatile Trump administration, there is broad agreement that Europe must strengthen its position on the global stage. The key question is, though, can the bloc's leader agree on a collective path forward? Let's bring in our correspondent, Alex Cadier, who is joining us from Alden-Bizen. Alex, I understand that the press conference has just wrapped up, but do tell us what was discussed.
Well, before I do that, Diana, I'm going to bring you an insight into what these European leaders' meetings feel like and look like on the ground sometimes. About 2 minutes ago, as I was stood right here, the German Chancellor just walked past, and I just turned to him and said, was this a successful day? Chancellor Merz, he said, yeah, absolutely, a very successful day. This is the level of proximity we can have to these leaders in these moments. They've been in the room all day trying to hash out a plan. There was a bit of tension at the start of the day because the Belgians and the Germans held a pre-summit summit of their own, and that delayed the whole thing. But let's focus on what we heard from Ursula von der Leyen, from Antonio Costa, and what the leaders came together to discuss. We heard from Emmanuel Macron, the French president, this morning. He said, look, we are under more and more pressure. There is competition, sometimes unfair competition against Europe. China is not as reliable an export market as it used to. Energy is a problem because we can't buy from Russia, and the United States is increasingly volatile. Clearly, Europe is being squeezed, and they need to act on it. There are a few things that have been discussed. I'll come back to that in a moment. But let's hear from Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission President, on exactly what was agreed today.
We did not come to a conclusion. I want to be very clear on this one. But to the next European Council, I will bring different options and findings on whether it is time to move forward on the market design or whether we are still good on this market design.
To be fair to Ursula von der Leyen, Diana, today was not about concrete conclusions. It was not about signing on a deal, on a program, on a plan. It was about hashing out those ideas. Let's break them down. Number one, most important, energy prices, far too high in Europe, higher than China, higher than the US. The Commission President talking about the fact that energy highways need to be built across the continent, that interconnection between countries would facilitate the ability to sell from one to another. They have to work on that together. There's also the climate laws, the climate systems, for example, the quota that high-polluting companies have. They are capped at the amount of greenhouse gases they emit. If they emit more, they have to buy more quotas from another company that costs them money. It's bureaucratic. They don't like it. That may be looked at. That may be reformed. But again, Emmanuel Macron saying we can't throw out all of our green plans just to make the economy more energetic, more competitive with the US, with China. All of these things will be looked at in the next few weeks. The European Commission has now been given a clear direction from these leaders here in Alden-Bizen. Come up with a plan, come up with suggestions, figure out how we make Europe punchier, more competitive, better economic growth. That will be presented in March. They will debate it over in March, and then perhaps a decision in June. It may feel slow, Diana, but 27 countries aligning on competition, on the economy, is still quite difficult. Europe moving forward tonight.
Thank you so much, Alex Cadier, for such a thorough report. Russia is cracking down on Telegram, one of the country's most popular apps, in a move critics say is aimed at boosting state surveillance. Kazimierz Wysiak reports on how millions of users could lose access to secure messaging and what it means for Russia's digital freedom.
Telegram is one of the most popular apps in Russia with millions of daily users. But that's about to change. The Russian state is heavily restricting access to the messaging app, making it virtually unusable.
At first, calls stopped working. For a long time now. Without other third-party services, they haven't worked. This is very bad because all my friends and family use Telegram, and I don't know how I'm going to communicate with them.
Russia's state regulator Roskomnadzor argues the app is not taking enough steps to remove content promoting terrorism. What that really means is content undermining the rule of Vladimir Putin and his state-approved propaganda.
From Russia's perspective, when they think or expose something as an act of terror, it means it just not by Kremlin's thought.
Meanwhile, Telegram's founder, a Russian citizen, is making accusations of his own.
Russia is restricting access to Telegram in an attempt to force its citizens to switch to a state-controlled app built for surveillance and political censorship. Restricting citizens' freedom is never the right answer.
And Telegram is not the only app Russia has restricted access to. The Meta-owned WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook and other apps are now facing similar measures.
Trying to isolate over 100 million users from private and secure communication is a backwards step and can only lead to less safety for people in Russia. We continue to do everything we can to keep users connected.
The Russian state-owned alternative is Max, a communicator that also handles payments and government services. As cybersecurity experts warn, simply downloading the app is already a threat to users' privacy.
The biggest threat could be taking control over our device, which means that if you preserve some private information in other communicators, in your other private folders, like the notes that you take, like the pictures or movies that you take, those could be as well taken into this application and sent outside.
Russia has been consistently scoring among the lowest in the world on freedom of speech indexes due to its wide-ranging mechanisms of repression. In the 2025 World Press Freedom Index, it placed 171 out of 180. For TVP World, Kazimierz Łysiak.
A scandal is unfolding at the 2026 Winter Olympics. Ukrainian skeleton racer Władysław Heraskevich was disqualified before his first run at the Games in Italy after wearing a helmet honoring Ukrainian athletes killed in Russia's war. The International Olympic Committee said the move violates rules against political statements. Anastasia Yanchenko has the story.
The Ukrainian man is the coach and father of Ukrainian skeleton racer Władysław Heraskevich, who has been disqualified from the Olympic Winter Games. The decision was prompted by Heraskevich's custom helmet, which honors Ukrainian athletes killed during Russia's full-scale war, some of whom had competed in previous Olympic Games. He called it the price of Ukraine's dignity.
Although this scandal has made it possible to loudly speak about Ukrainian athletes who have been killed, at the same time, the very fact of the scandal distracts a tremendous amount of attention away from the competitions themselves.
Meanwhile, the committee's spokesperson Mark Adams said the decision was made in accordance with IOC rules, which forbid political expressions on the field.
There are 130 conflicts in the world. We cannot have statements on those during competition.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the decision and presented Władysław Heraskevich with a state award.
660 Ukrainian athletes and coaches have been killed by Russia since the full-scale invasion began. Hundreds of our athletes will never again be able to take part in the Olympic Games or any other international competitions. And yet 13 Russians are currently in Italy competing at the Olympics. We are proud of Władysław and of what he did. Having courage is worth more than any medal.
Although the Russian and Belarusian national teams have been banned from the Games since 2022, some athletes are still allowed to compete under a neutral banner. Ukrainian Olympic champion Jan Beleniuk expressed his dissatisfaction with the current stance of the IOC.
Russia continues to kill Ukrainians. The International Committee once spoke about solidarity, support and shared values with Ukraine. Now we see whether that solidarity holds in a real crisis.
The IOC also barred 2 other Ukrainian athletes from wearing custom helmets. Katerina Kotsar, who adorned her kit with the words, "Be brave like Ukrainians," and Oleg Handey, who added a line of Ukrainian poetry.
Our athletes do the impossible to represent our country. They train under constant sirens and shelling, without heat, and are treated unfairly and disqualified without reason.
The Ukrainian Olympic Committee said they would protest the decision, although
Vladislav Hryskevich is already a hero for Ukrainian people.
Anastasia Yanchenko, TVP World.
Feeling guilty about that extra pastry? Well, not today. It's Fat Thursday in Poland, the final Thursday before Ash Wednesday and the start of Lent, and one of the sweetest dates on the Polish calendar. The mission is simple and delicious. Eat as many donuts as possible, preferably in the name of good fortune. Our reporter Aisha Bacha has more on this scrumptious story.
Are you one of those people feeling a hint of guilt when you indulge a little bit too much in your favorite treat? Well, it's your lucky day, because here in Poland, it's Fat Thursday. And on Fat Thursday, eating a donut is not only a tradition, but also a deliciously serious requirement.
I have been advised to forget calories and then eat donuts today.
One of the donut, pączki in Polish, hotspots in Warsaw is pastry workshop Zagoździński, and they've been supplying Warsawians with donuts since 1925.
We try to make sure our donuts are just as good as they were in my great-grandfather's time. We don't change the recipe, we add a secret ingredient, our love.
Yes, this is the cue, but do not worry, because on Fat Thursday it becomes a matter of pride for every Polish pastry chef to produce the best rose jam-filled donut, so any pastry shop will do.
We have eaten a donut today, but we didn't know why. It was in our office. But now we appreciate it even more.
Everybody today has got to enjoy the donuts. Everybody has to have at least one, I think you said, of those amazing donuts.
It is widely believed here in Poland that eating one pączek on Fat Thursday brings good fortune and good luck for the year ahead. So if you haven't done it yet, go and claim your sugar-coated dose of good fortune. Or, as the old Polish saying goes, anyone who doesn't eat pączki on Fat Thursday risks an empty barn and fields overrun by mice. But no pressure. For TVP World, I'm Aisha Baja.
European allies have unveiled a $35 billion military aid package for Ukraine, set to fund drones and long-range strike capabilities, among other things. The announcement comes as EU defense ministers gathered at NATO headquarters to discuss broader European defense strategies. I'm joined by Garvin Walsh, the CEO of Article 7 Intelligence for Democrats. Garvin, welcome. So glad to have you here with us on World News tonight. Now, let me get straight into it.
Good evening.
Now, the UK, other European NATO allies have just earlier pledged $35 billion for military aid to Ukraine. In more detail, how exactly will this be distributed and what impact could it actually have on the battlefield?
The important thing is that Ukraine needs about 90 billion euros of support every year. Some of it to run its government, some of it's to run its military. It's a very high intensity war. They're using drones, they're using land forces, they're even using some air forces that Europe is now helping them have. And this money is absolutely crucial to ensure that Ukraine can continue to hold the line, continue to defend itself against Russia's increasingly faltering and slow advance. This is vital that this money was agreed. It was very hard fought, particularly because of the dispute over using frozen Russian assets. In fact, this is going to have to be borrowed. But, you know, Ukraine isn't really going to have to pay this back. This is just a way of keeping Ukraine in the fight and making sure that it's there to continue to protect its own security and also Europe's security, because Ukrainians are fighting and dying for the security of Europe as a whole and for the security of for the freedom of Europe and enabling us to resist Russian aggression.
Garvin, let me ask you this. I mean, Sweden also announced aid to Ukraine for the year 2026-2027. Do correct me if I'm wrong, to $8.9 million. How important is this for Ukraine's overall military support, if not more?
I mean, Sweden is basically spending as much on Ukraine as it is on its regular defense budget. It's a huge amount. Sweden sees this as a really important strategic requirement for Swedish national defense. They understand the threat Russia poses to the Nordic countries, and they're really putting huge efforts in to make sure that Ukraine has the equipment that it needs, and Sweden is doing everything it can, everything from artillery to anti-tank missiles to Gripen jets to continue to support the Ukrainian war effort. They really are putting in an awful lot of effort, and it's something that it would be excellent if other European countries followed suit.
One more country I definitely do have to ask you about, Garvin. Germany is also moving forward with its so-called Dome air defense project. What do we know about this?
Well, I mean, Germany has a whole series of programs here. They're working with the Israelis. They're working internationally to try and improve its air defense. Obviously, this is an area where Europe has been a little bit behind, and the effect of Russian strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure shows how important air defense actually is in modern warfare. And we really need to up our production, particularly of interceptor missiles. We need to develop new techniques to intercept drones. We don't want to intercept a cheap drone with a really expensive missile. The Ukrainians are even experimenting with laser weapons, and we'd like to see those kind of technologies deployed across Europe to continue to protect our skies.
You did just say deployed across Europe. Let me ask you this, Garvin. Are we seeing possibly a new trend of European countries, I mean, after a meeting that took place today, right, taking more responsibility for their own defense rather than relying primarily on U.S. leadership?
Yeah, we're seeing significant rearmament in Europe. We're seeing increased industrial capacity. We're seeing greater artillery production. We're seeing discussions about increasing manpower. Obviously, you have countries like Poland that are trying to spend 5% of GDP on defense. The Nordic countries are doing something similar. But even Germany is ramping up its production. They have borrowed huge amounts of money as part of a special fund to modernize the Bundeswehr to be able to participate in European defense obligations. This is vital. It's not just about not relying on the United States, but it's quite fair enough that we start paying for our own defense. I mean, we're a rich continent. We should be able to develop the technologies and the capacities to be able to defend ourselves from a country that has an economy the same size as the Netherlands and Belgium. You know, the Polish economy is almost half the size of Russia's now. Never mind the economy of Germany or France.
I do see you smiling, telling me that. Garvin, how do these pledges and all these projects actually affect NATO's overall deterrence posture vis-a-vis Russia? I mean, you just mentioned Russia.
I mean, the stronger European NATO is, the stronger that deterrence is. There's still a lot of work to be done, and there are important capabilities that we have to develop, including the ability to suppress enemy air defense, the ability to have conventional deep strike, and there are questions over Europe's nuclear capability as well. Are we able to deter Russia, not so much at the strategic level, because Britain and France can do that, but if it comes to the sub-strategic or tactical level, do we have the capabilities to match Russia in those areas? That's one of the most difficult and fraught questions as we rearm. We need to decide whether we want to have that nuclear capability. We need to decide who should hold it. You know, Donald Tusk a few months ago did talk about cooperating further with France on this kind of issue. These are the kinds of questions we're facing as the United States starts to draw down its support from Europe, and in the case of the Trump administration generally, act with increasing unpredictability and even threats to Greenland.
Aside from decision-making, I think time is also of essence. Garvin, how quickly can Europe deliver the air defense and long-range systems that Ukraine needs?
I mean, the most efficient thing we can do for long-range systems is to supply money to allow Ukrainian factories to operate at capacity. When it comes to air defense missiles, we are particularly short on the capability to intercept Russian ballistic missiles. There is a system called the SAMP-T built by the French that is able to do that, but it's not in large-scale production yet. It does seem to be very capable, though. We've seen the last few weeks, as U.S. Patriot batteries have got scarce, how heavily Ukraine has been hit, and we should make sure that this doesn't happen again next winter.
And what about some key challenges that Europe is going to face in implementing all of this?
I mean, one of the key challenges is coordination, getting the money to the right place, avoiding duplication. You see disputes between France and Germany over the future combat air system. When you have 27 countries trying to cooperate rather than one organization simply telling them what to do, obviously coordination problems are going to get bigger. But, you know, we have the capability, we have the resources. What we need to do is dial down the national pride a bit and understand that it's a threat to the continent and that one that we can meet very capably as long as we act together and we act efficiently.
Thank you so much, Garvin Walsh, CEO, Article 7 Intelligence for Democrats, for being our guest here today on TVP World.
Thank you very much.
And that's all for this edition of World News Tonight here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching and stay with us here for more news and exclusive interviews.